Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. You know, this Caitanya-caritämrta that we're reading now is really, really important because when we see Krishna, Radha and Krishna in particular, and Goloka Vrindavan and all the Brajbasis, through the lens of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, they become more accessible and more understandable. And because this Caitanya-caritämrta the verses are coming from so many different scriptures and put together by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in such a profound and simple way. It's absolutely necessary that we hear this book. So I'm here in the live studios in Hive, Kent, southeast England, happily relishing reading the Caitanya-caritämrta to you all and praying that more devotees will come on board and hear it direct like this, cover to cover. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, said something very, very far out about the Caitanya-caritämrta. This shouldn't be understood in the wrong way, though. We shouldn't think that Bhaktisiddhanta is saying we should give up the Bhagavad Gita, should give up Bhagavatam, and just hold on to Caitanya-caritämrta. It's a poetic way of him saying how important the Caitanya-caritämrta is. This is what he said. In due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it is subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. So the Gita is the essence, Mahabharata is the essence of all the Puranas, Gita is the essence, Bhagavatam is the essence, Vedanta Sutra and all the other Vedic literatures, and therefore Caitanya-caritämrta is the essence of all of them. That's what he's trying to say. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we've reached the 53rd verse of the first chapter of the Ädi-lilä, entitled The Spiritual Masters, and we're just about to hear the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, the first four verses that were given by Lord Vishnu to Brahma. Brahma to Narada. Text 53. Aham evasam evagre nanyad yat sarasat param paschat aham yadetachcha yo vashishyet tasosmyaham. Prior to the cosmic creation, only I exist, and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain, eternally. Purport. Aham means I. Therefore, the speaker who is saying Aham, I, must have his own personality. The Mayavadi philosophers interpret this word Aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. The Mayavadis are very proud of their grammatical knowledge, but any person who has actual knowledge of grammar can understand that Aham, I, and that I refers to a personality. Therefore, the personality of Godhead, speaking to Brahma, uses Aham while describing his own transcendental form. Aham has a specific meaning. It is not a vague term that can be whimsically interpreted. Aham, when spoken by Krishna, refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else. Before the creation and after its dissolution, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates exist. There is no existence of the material elements. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Vasudevo va idam agra asin na brahma na cha shankaraha. The meaning of this mantra is that before creation there was no existence of Brahma or Shiva, for only Vishnu existed. Vishnu exists in his own abode, the Vaikunthas. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and on each of them Vishnu resides with his associates and his paraphernalia. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that although the creation is periodically dissolved, there is another abode which is never dissolved. The word creation refers to the material creation, because in the spiritual world everything exists eternally and there is no creation or dissolution. The Lord indicates herein that before the material creation he existed in fullness with all transcendental opulences, including all strength, all wealth, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, and all renunciation. If one thinks of a king, he automatically thinks of his secretaries, ministers, military commanders, palaces, and so on. Since a king has such opulences, one can simply try to imagine the opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Lord says Aham, therefore, it is to be understood that he exists with full potency, including all opulences. The word Yat refers to Brahman, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. In the Brahma Samhita 540, it is said, Tad Brahma Nishkalamanantam Ashesha Bhutam. The Brahman effulgence expands unlimitedly. Just as the sun is a localized planet with the sunshine expanding unlimitedly from that source, so the Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his effulgence of energy, Brahman, expanding unlimitedly. From that Brahman energy, the creation appears, just as a cloud appears in sunshine. From the cloud comes rain, from the rain comes vegetation, and from the vegetation come fruits and flowers, which are the basis of subsistence for many other forms of life. Similarly, the effulgent bodily light of the Supreme Lord is the cause of the creation of infinite universes. The Brahman effulgence is impersonal, but the cause of that energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From him, in his abode, the Vaikunthas, this Brahmajyoti emanates. He is never impersonal. Since impersonalists cannot understand the source of the Brahman energy, they mistakenly choose to think this impersonal Brahman, the ultimate or absolute goal. Excuse me. read the last sentence again. Since impersonalists cannot understand the source of the Brahman energy, they mistakenly choose to think this impersonal Brahman the ultimate or absolute goal. But as stated in the Upanishads, one has to penetrate the impersonal effulgence to see the face of the Supreme Lord. If one desires to reach the source of the sunshine, he has to travel through the sunshine to reach the sun, and then meet the predominating deity there. The absolute truth is the Supreme Person, Bhagavan, as Srimad Bhagavatam explains. Sat means effect, Asat means cause, and Param refers to the ultimate truth, which is transcendental to cause and effect. The cause of the creation is called the Mahat Tattva, or total material energy, and its effect is the creation itself. But neither cause nor effect existed in the beginning. They emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as did the energy of time. This is stated in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmad Yasya Yataha. The source of birth of the cosmic manifestation, or Mahat Tattva, is the Supreme Personality, the personality of Godhead. This is confirmed throughout Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, the Lord says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. I am the fountainhead of all emanations. The material cosmos, being temporary, is sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest, but its energy emanates from the Supreme Absolute Lord. Before the creation, there was neither cause nor effect, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead existed with his full opulence and energy. The words Paschad Aham indicate that the Lord exists after the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. When the material world is dissolved, the Lord still exists personally in the Vaikunthas. During the creation, the Lord also exists as he is in the Vaikunthas, and he also exists as the Supersoul within the material universes. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 5.37, Goloka Eva Nivasati. Although he is perfectly and eternally present in Goloka Vrindavan in Vaikuntha, he is nevertheless all-pervading, Akilatma Bhutaha. The all-pervading feature of the Lord is called the Supersoul. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Aham Kritsnasya Jagata Prabhava. The cosmic manifestation is a display of the energy of the Supreme Lord. The material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, display the inferior energy of the Lord, and the living entities are his superior energy. Since the energy of the Lord is not different from him, in fact, everything that exists is Krishna in his impersonal feature. Sunshine, sunlight, and heat are not different from the sun, and yet simultaneously they are distinct energies of the sun. Similarly, the cosmic manifestation and the living entities are energies of the Lord, and they are considered to be simultaneously one with and different from him. The Lord therefore says, I am everything, because everything is his energy and is therefore non-different from him. Yo Vishishetaso Smyaham indicates that the Lord is the balance that exists after the dissolution of the creation. The spiritual manifestation never vanishes. It belongs to the internal energy of the Supreme Lord and exists eternally. When the external manifestation is withdrawn, the spiritual activities in Goloka and the rest of the Vaikunthas continue, unrestricted by material time, which has no existence in the spiritual world. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 15.6, it is said, Yad gatva nanivartante tad dhamma paramam mama. The abode from which no one returns to this material world is the supreme abode of the Lord. Text 54. This is the second of the 4 Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Ritair tam yat pritiyeta na pritiyeta chatmani tad vidyad atmano mayam yata bhaso yata tamaha. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Purport. In the previous verse, the absolute truth and its nature have been explained. One must also understand the relative truth to actually know the absolute. The relative truth, which is called Maya, or material nature, is explained here. Maya has no independent existence. One who is less intelligent is captivated by the wonderful activities of Maya, but he does not understand that behind these activities is the direction of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.10 it is said, Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sachadachadam. The material nature is working and producing moving and non-moving beings only by the supervision of Krishna. The real nature of Maya, the illusory energy of the material manifestation, is clearly explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is substance, and the relative truth depends upon its relationship with the absolute for its existence. Maya means energy. Therefore, the relative truth is explained to be the energy of the absolute truth. Since it is difficult to understand the distinction between the absolute and relative truths, an analogy can be given for clarification. The absolute truth can be compared to the sun, which is appreciated in terms of 2 relative truths, reflection and darkness. Darkness is the absence of sunshine, and a reflection is a projection of sunlight into darkness. Neither darkness nor reflection has an independent existence. Darkness comes when the sunshine is blocked. For example, if one stands facing the sun, his back will be in darkness. Since darkness stands in the absence of the sun, it is therefore relative to the sun. The spiritual world is compared to the real sunshine, and the material world is compared to the dark regions where the sun is not visible. When the material manifestation appears very wonderful, this is due to a perverted reflection of the supreme sunshine, the absolute truth, as confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra. Whatever one can see here has its substance in the absolute. As darkness is situated far away from the sun, so the material world is also far away from the spiritual world. The Vedic literature directs us not to be captivated by the dark regions, tamaha, but to try to reach the shining regions of the absolute, yogi dhamma. The spiritual world is brightly illuminated, but the material world is wrapped in darkness. In the material world, sunshine, moonshine, or different kinds of artificial light are required to dispel darkness, especially at night, for by nature the material world is dark. Therefore the Supreme Lord has arranged for sunshine and moonshine. But in his abode, as described in the Bhagavad Gita 15.6, there is no necessity for lightning by sunshine. There is no necessity for lightning by sunshine, moonshine, or electricity. I made a mistake. Bhagavad Gita 15.6, there is no necessity for lighting by sunshine, moonshine, or electricity, because everything is self-effulgent. That which is relative, temporary, and far away from the absolute truth is called Maya, or ignorance. This illusion is exhibited in two ways, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The inferior illusion is inert matter, and the superior illusion is the living entity. The living entities are called illusory in this context only because they are implicated in the illusory structures and activities of the material world. Actually, the living entities are not illusory, for they are parts of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord and do not have to be covered by Maya if they do not want to be so. The actions of the living entities in the spiritual kingdom are not illusory. They are actual, eternal activities of liberated souls. Text 55, the third Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Yata mahanti bhutani bhuteshu cha vasheshvanu pravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living beings and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. Purport. The gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, combine with the subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego, to construct the bodies of this material world. And yet, they are beyond these bodies as well. Any material construction is nothing but an amalgamation or combination of material elements in varied proportions. These elements exist both within and beyond the body. For example, although the sky exists in space, it also enters within the body. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, who is the cause of the material energy, lives within the material world as well as beyond it. Without his presence within the material world, the cosmic body could not develop, just as without the presence of the spirit within the physical body, the body could not develop. The entire material manifestation develops and exists because the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters it as Paramatma, or the Supersoul. The Personality of Godhead, in his all-pervading feature of Paramatma, enters every entity, from the biggest to the most minute. His existence can be realized by one who has the single qualification of submissiveness. This is an extremely important sentence, and the sentence is after that. So I'll repeat this. The personality of Godhead, in his all-pervading feature of Paramatma, enters every entity, from the biggest to the most minute. His existence can be realized by one who has the single qualification of submissiveness and who thereby becomes a surrendered soul. The development of submissiveness is the cause of proportionate spiritual realization, by which one can ultimately meet the Supreme Lord in person, as a man meets another man, face to face. Because of his development of transcendental attachment for the Supreme Lord, a surrendered soul feels the presence of his beloved everywhere, and all his senses are engaged in the loving service of the Lord. His eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, sitting on a decorated throne beneath a desire tree in the transcendental land of Vrindavan. His nose is engaged in smelling the spiritual aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, his ears are engaged in hearing messages from Vaikuntha, and his hands embrace the lotus feet of the Lord and his associates. Thus the Lord is manifested to a pure devotee from within and without. This is one of the mysteries of the devotional relationship in which a devotee and the Lord are bound by a tie of spontaneous love. To achieve this love should be the goal of life for every living being. 56. The fourth of the four. Fourth, right? This is fourth. Fourth of the Chaturshloki, Bhagavatam. Etavad eva jigyasyam tattva jigyasunatmanaha anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatsyat sarvata sarvada. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always, directly and indirectly, inquire about it to know the all-pervading truth. Purport. Those who are serious about the knowledge of the transcendental world, which is far beyond the material cosmic creation, must approach a bona fide spiritual master to learn this science both directly and indirectly. One must learn both the means to approach the desired destination and the hindrances to such progress. The spiritual master knows how to regulate the habits of a neophyte disciple, and therefore a serious student must learn the science in all its aspects from him. There are different shades, different grades, and standards of prosperity. There are different grades and standards of prosperity. The standard of comfort and happiness conceived by a common man engaged in material labor is the lowest grade of happiness, for it is in relationship with the body. The highest standard of such bodily comfort is achieved by a fruitive worker who by pious activities reaches the plane of heaven, or the kingdom of the creative gods with their delegated powers. But the conception of comfortable life in heaven is insignificant by comparison to the happiness enjoyed in the impersonal Brahman. And this Brahmananda, the spiritual bliss derived from impersonal Brahman, is like the water in the hoofprint of a calf compared to the ocean of love of Godhead. When one develops pure love for the Lord, he derives an ocean of transcendental happiness from the association of the personality of Godhead. To qualify oneself to reach this stage of life is the highest perfection. One should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back to Godhead. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened, even if one continuously performs pious activities for thousands of lives. All mundane relationships are sure to be broken in the course of time, but once one establishes a relationship with the personality of Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken, even after the annihilation of the material world. One should understand, through the transparent medium of the spiritual master, that the Supreme Lord exists everywhere in his transcendental spiritual nature, and that these living entities' relationships with the Lord are directly and indirectly existing everywhere, even in this material world. In the spiritual world, there are 5 kinds of relationships with the Supreme Lord: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The perverted reflections of these rasas are found in the material world. Land, home, furniture, and other inert material objects are related in Shanta, or the neutral and silent sense, whereas servants work in the Dasya relationship. The reciprocation between friends is called Sakya. The attraction of a parent for a child is known as Vatsalya, and the affairs of conjugal love constitute Madhurya. These 5 relationships in the material world are distorted reflections of the original, pure sentiments in the material world. These 5 relationships in the material world are distorted reflections of the original, pure sentiments, which should be understood and perfected in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. In the material world, the perverted rasas bring frustration. If these rasas are re-established with Lord Krishna, the result is eternal, blissful life. From this and the preceding 3 verses of the Caitanya-caritämrta, which have been selected from Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood. Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses, which are summarized in the 4 verses beginning with Aham-evasamevagre, 53, and concluding with Yat Syat Sarvatra Sarvada, 56. In the first of these verses, 53, the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is explained. The second verse, 54, further explains that the Lord is detached from the workings of the material energy, Maya. The living entities, although parts and parcels of Lord Krishna, are prone to be controlled by the external energy. Therefore, although they are spiritual, in the material world they are encased in bodies of material energy. The eternal relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord is explained in that verse. The next verse, 55, instructs that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable energies, is simultaneously one with and different from the living entities and the material energy. This knowledge is called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. When an individual entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord Krishna, he can then develop natural, transcendental love for him. This surrendering process should be the primary concern of a human being. In the next verse, 56, it is said that a conditioned soul must ultimately approach a bona fide spiritual master and try to understand perfectly the material and spiritual worlds and his own existential position. Here the words Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam, directly and indirectly, suggest that one must learn the process of devotional service in its 2 aspects. One must directly execute the process of devotional service and indirectly avoid the impediments to progress. Text 57. All glories to Chintamani and my initiating spiritual master, Somagiri. All glories to my instructing spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who wears peacock feathers in his crown. Under the shade of his lotus feet, which are like desire trees, Jai Shri, Radharani, enjoys the transcendental mellow of an eternal consort. Purport. This verse is from the Krishna Karnamrita, which was written by a great Vaishnava sannyasi named Bilvamangal Thakur, who is also known as Lila Shuka. He intensely desired to enter into the eternal pastimes of the Lord, and he lived at Vrindavan for 700 years in the vicinity of Brahmakunda, a still existing bathing tank in Vrindavan. The history of Bilvamangal Thakur is given in a book called Sri Ballabha Digbijay. He appeared in the 8th century of the Shaka era in the province of Dravida and was the chief disciple of Vishnu Swami. In a list of temples and monasteries kept in Shankaracharya's monastery in Dwarka, Bilvamangal is mentioned as the founder of the Dwarkadish temple there. He entrusted the service of his deity to Hari Brahmachari, a disciple of Ballabha Bhatta. Bilvamangal Thakur actually entered into the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. He has recorded his transcendental experiences and appreciation in the book known as Caitanya-caritämrta. In the beginning of that book, he has offered his obeisances to his different gurus, and it is to be noted that he has adored them all equally. His first spiritual master mentioned is Chintamani, who was one of his instructing spiritual masters because she first showed him the spiritual path. Chintamani was a prostitute with whom Bilvamangal was intimate earlier in his life. She gave him the inspiration to begin the path of devotional service, and because she convinced him to give up material existence to try for perfection by loving Krishna, he has first offered his respects to her. Next, he offers his respects to his initiating spiritual master, Somagiri, and then to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was also his instructing spiritual master. He explicitly mentions Bhagavan, who has peacock feathers on his crown, because the Lord of Vrindavan, Krishna the cowherd boy, used to come to Bilvamangal to talk with him and supply him with milk. In his adoration of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, he states that Jai Shri, the goddess of fortune, Srimati Radharani, takes shelter in the shade of his lotus feet to enjoy the transcendental rasa of nuptial love. The complete treatise, Caitanya-caritämrta, is dedicated to the transcendental pastimes of Sri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. It is a book to be read and understood by the most elevated devotees of Sri Krishna. Text 58. Since one cannot visually experience the presence of the Supersoul, he appears before us as a liberated devotee. Such a spiritual master is none other than Krishna himself. Purport. It is not possible for a conditioned soul to directly meet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if one becomes a sincere devotee and seriously engages in devotional service, Lord Krishna sends an instructing spiritual master to show him favor and invoke his dormant propensity for serving the Supreme. The preceptor appears before the external senses of the fortunate conditioned soul, and at the same time, the devotee is guided from within by the Chaitya Guru, Krishna, who is seated as the spiritual master within the heart of a living entity. Text 59. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. Purport. This verse, which appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 11:26-26, was spoken by Lord Krishna to Uddhava in the text known as the Uddhava Gita. The discussion relates to the story of Pururava and the heavenly courtesan, Urvashi. When Urvashi left Pururava, he was deeply affected by the separation and had to learn to overcome his grief. It is indicated that to learn the transcendental science, it is imperative that one avoid the company of undesirable persons and always seek the company of saints and sages who are able to impart lessons of transcendental knowledge. The potent words of such realized souls penetrate the heart, thereby eradicating all misgivings accumulated through years of undesirable association. For a neophyte devotee, there are two kinds of persons whose association is undesirable. 1. Gross materialists who constantly engage in sense gratification, and 2. Unbelievers who do not serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but serve their senses and their mental whims in terms of their speculative habits. Intelligent persons seeking transcendental realization should very scrupulously avoid their company. Text 60. Satam prasangan mama virya sangbido bhavanti rit karna rasayana kataha yad taj joshanad ashabavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktiranum kramishyati. The spiritually powerful message of Godhead can be properly discussed only in the society of devotees, and it is greatly pleasing to hear in that association. If one hears from devotees, the way of transcendental experience quickly opens, and gradually one attains firm faith that in due course develops into attraction and devotion. Purport. This verse appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-25, where Kapila replies to the questions of his mother Devahuti about the process of devotional service. As one advances in devotional activities, the process becomes progressively clearer and more encouraging. Unless one gets this spiritual encouragement by following the instructions of the spiritual master, it is not possible to make advancement. Therefore, one's development of a taste for executing these instructions is the test of one's devotional service. Initially, one must develop confidence by hearing the science of devotion from a qualified spiritual master. Then, as he associates with devotees and tries to adopt the means instructed by the spiritual master in his own life, his misgivings and other obstacles are vanquished by his execution of devotional service. Strong attachment for the transcendental service of the Lord develops as he continues listening to the messages of Godhead, and if he steadfastly proceeds in this way, he is certainly elevated to spontaneous love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 61. A pure devotee constantly engaged in the loving service of the Lord is identical with the Lord, who is always seated in his heart. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second, and therefore he is all-powerful. He has inconceivable energies, of which 3 are principal. The devotee is considered to be one of these energies, never the energetic. The energetic is always the Supreme Lord. The energies are related to him for the purpose of eternal service. A living entity in the conditioned stage can uncover his aptitude for serving the Absolute Truth by the grace of Krishna and the spiritual master. Then the Lord reveals himself within his heart, and he can know that Krishna is seated in the heart of every pure devotee. Krishna is actually situated in the heart of every living entity, but only a devotee can realize this fact. Text 62. Sadhavo hridayam mayam sadhunam hridayam twaham madanyat te najananti naham tebhyo managapi. Saints are my heart, and only I am their hearts. They do not know anyone but me, and therefore I do not recognize anyone besides them as mine. Purport. This verse appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.68 in connection with a misunderstanding between Durvasa Muni and Maharaj Ambarish. As a result of this misunderstanding, Durvasa Muni tried to kill the king. When the Sudarshan Chakra, the celebrated weapon of Godhead, appeared on the scene for the devoted king's protection. When the Sudarshan Chakra attacked Durvasa Muni, he fled in fear of the weapon and sought shelter from all the great demigods in heaven. Not one of them was able to protect him, and therefore Durvasa Muni prayed to Lord Vishnu for forgiveness. Lord Vishnu advised him, however, that if he wanted forgiveness, he had to get it from Maharaj Ambarish, not from him. In this context, Lord Vishnu spoke this verse. The Lord being free, the Lord being full and free from problems, can wholeheartedly care for his devotees. His concern is how to elevate and protect excuse me. The Lord, being full and free from problems, can wholeheartedly care for his devotees. His concern is how to elevate and protect all those who have taken shelter at his lotus feet. The same responsibility is also entrusted to the spiritual master. The bona fide spiritual master's concern is how the devotees who have surrendered to him as a representative of the Lord may make progress in devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always mindful of the devotees who fully engage in cultivating knowledge of him, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Hare Krishna. Text 63. Bhavad vida bhagavatas tirtha bhutak swayam vibho tirti kurvanti tirtani swantak stenagada brita. You'll notice how all of these verses from the Bhagavatam and other scriptures are so beautifully strung together to make the points clearer and more powerful. Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Cheers. Thank you. Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Purport. This verse was spoken by Maharaj Yudhishthir to Vidura in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.13.10. Maharaj Yudhishthira was receiving his saintly uncle Vidura, who had been visiting sacred places of pilgrimage. Maharaj Yudhishthira told Vidura that pure devotees like him are personified holy places, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead are always with them in their hearts. By their association, sinful persons are freed from sinful reactions, and therefore wherever a pure devotee goes is a sacred place of pilgrimage. The importance of holy places is due to the presence there of such pure devotees. Text 64. Such pure devotees are of two types: personal associates, parishats, and neophyte devotees, sadhakas. Purport. Pure servitors of the Lord are considered his personal associates, whereas devotees endeavoring to attain perfection are called neophytes. Among the associates, some are attracted by the opulences of the personality of Godhead, and others are attracted by nuptial love of Godhead. The former devotees are placed in the realm of Vaikuntha to render reverential devotional service, whereas the latter devotees are placed in Vrindavan for the direct service of Sri Krishna. Text 65 and 66. Ishwarera avatara etina prakar angsha avatara adaguna avatara Shaktivesha avatara tritiya e mata angsha avatara purusha matyadika yata. There are three categories of the incarnations of Godhead: partial incarnations, qualitative incarnations, and empowered incarnations. The Purushas and Matsya are examples of partial incarnations. Text 67. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are qualitative incarnations. Empowered incarnations are those like the Kumaras, King Prithu, and Mahamuni, Vyas, the compiler of the Vedas. Text 68. The personality of Godhead exhibits himself in two kinds of forms: Prakash and Vilas. Purport. The Supreme Lord expands his personal forms in two primary categories. The Prakash forms are manifested by Lord Krishna for his pastimes, and their features are exactly like his. When Lord Krishna married 16,000 queens in Dwaraka, he did so in 16,000 Prakash expansions. Similarly, during the Rasa dance, he expanded himself in identical Prakash forms to dance beside each and every gopi simultaneously. When the Lord manifests his Vilas expansions, however, they are all somewhat different in their bodily features. Lord Balaram is the first Vilas expansion of Lord Krishna, and the four-handed Narayana forms in Vaikuntha expand from Balarama. There is no difference between the bodily forms of Sri Krishna and Balarama, except that their bodily colors are different. Similarly, Sri Narayana in Vaikuntha has 4 hands, whereas Krishna has only 2. The expansions of the Lord who manifest such bodily differences are known as Vilas Vigrahas. When the personality of Godhead expands himself in many forms, all non-different in their features, as Lord Krishna did when he married 16,000 queens and when he performed his rasa dance, such forms of the Lord are called manifested forms, Prakash Vigrahas. 71. It is astounding that Lord Sri Krishna, who is one without a second, expanded himself in 16,000 similar forms to marry 16,000 queens in their respective homes. Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 1069-2. Text 72. When Lord Krishna, surrounded by groups of cowherd girls, began the festivities of the rasa dance, the Lord of all mystic powers placed himself between each two girls. Purport. This verse is also quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 1033-3. Text 73 to 74. When the cowherd girls and Krishna thus joined together, each girl thought that Krishna was dearly embracing her alone. To behold this wonderful pastime of the Lords, the denizens of heaven and their wives, all very eager to see the dance, flew in the sky in their hundreds of airplanes. They showered flowers and beat sweetly on drums. Purport. This is another quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1033, 3 and 4. Text 75. If numerous forms, all equal in their features, are displayed simultaneously, such forms are called Prakash Vigrahas of the Lord. Purport. This is a quotation from the Laghu Bhagavatamrita 121, compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. So you see what Krishnadas Kaviraj is doing. He's giving these verses, and then he's finding other verses that confirm the verses, and then he's writing a commentary on his own statements. It's amazing. Therefore, it's called the perfect scripture. One can get the overview of all scriptures from this book. And that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said what he did. Okay. We're going to stop here. We'll start at verse 76 with the beginning of the explanation of what the Vilas Vigrahas are. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Haribo. Okay, here we are at our favorite time. Well, not really. Favorite time is hearing the verses themselves, but also we like to discuss them. Radharaman, back in action.
I've got a few things which I don't know that no one else has really got a comment yet, have they? Or have they? Oh, did you? I haven't got it on mine. Okay, well, I'll be brief then. Where's it? Facebook. There's this one. There's an appreciation of this. Is from Adi 155. A little bit of the purport. That which is relative, temporary, and far away from the absolute truth is called Maya or ignorance. This illusion is exhibited in two ways, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The inferior illusion is inert matter, and the superior illusion is the living entity. The living entities are called illusory in this context only because they are implicated in the illusory structures and activities of the material world. Actually, the living entities are not illusory, for they are parts of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and do not have to be covered by Maya, if they don't want to be. The actions of the living entities in the spiritual kingdom are not illusory. They are actual, eternal activities of liberated souls.
Beautiful. Thank you. Would you care to comment?
Well, I particularly noted that sentence, that the living
They don't
entities
have to be if they don't want to be.
Yeah.
In other words, it's our responsibility that we're here. If you don't take any other philosophy, then we have to blame Krishna. And he's some kind of, like God that is, throwing us into material, illusion to watch us suffer for some kind of whimsical pleasure. But that's not the truth at all. It's not the truth at all.
The next one is a question. Prabhupada says in the purport to the last of the 4 Chatushloki verses, from this and the preceding 3 verses of Caitanya-caritämrta, which have been selected from Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood. I was just wondering if you could comment on that, Maharaj.
Yeah, because the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya are to explain the supreme absolute truth to the people of the material world. In order to do that, they have to keep searching until they find it. That's the essence. And then they have to be taught what to do and what not to do. That's the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement, to teach the conditioned souls what to do and what not to do in order to actually understand who God is, what the absolute truth is, and who they are in relationship with the absolute truth. Therefore, the genius of our spiritual master, our founder, Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, is he simplified the process in 2 instructions only. Chant 16 rounds minimum a day, try to do that without offense, and avoid the 4 pillars of sinful life: illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, intoxication. The do's and the do-nots, in essence.
And then the last one is also a question which could have possibly been asked last night as well, because there was enough purports saying a similar thing. One must learn both the means to approach the desired destination and the hindrances to such progress. The spiritual master knows how to regulate the habits of a neophyte disciple, and therefore a serious student must learn the science in all its aspects from him. Throughout this chapter, Prabhupada has actually emphasized in his purports the position of the spiritual master, it seems to me, the actual living spirit.
Yeah, that's right. And also from that same purport that you quoted before, number 55, he says that submissiveness, the development of submissiveness, is the actual secret. Because when you approach the spiritual master and you inquire, you must do it submissively. Tadvidi paripratina pariprashnena sevya. Pariprashnena sevya. It means you have to tadvidi paripantina. Paripantina means with submissiveness. You have to inquire and then serve. And then the spiritual master becomes inclined, and because he knows the science of Krishna consciousness, he explains it. And he explains it in proportion to the submissiveness. If he sees that a person's not submissive, he'll only explain what he can accept. And as a person develops more submissiveness, he'll explain more until he gets the whole absolute truth and knows what to do in the spiritual world. We got some other things from out there in cyberspace.
First one is from Bhakta Charlie.
Hey, Bhakta Charlie, Haribo.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. We heard in one of the purports We heard in one of the purports that Krishna, as the Chaitya Guru, can give guidance to the devotee from within. Is this kind of guidance from within only for advanced devotees, or can we as neophytes trust our hearts or intuition?
Well, intuition comes from Krishna, but that guidance is given to us according to our desires, according to our, what we want. Like Radharaman pointed this very nice sentence in the purport that said that we don't really have to be conditioned in this material world if we don't want to. But we want to, and we have to be able to give up that desire, and we have to be able to increase the strength of our desire to know who we are actually and to go back to the spiritual world. But in order to do that, you have to know what the spiritual world is. You have to accept that it exists. You can't see it with your present mind and eyes and senses. So therefore you have to accept the truth coming down from the spiritual world through the chain of disciplic succession to the spiritual master. So it also said that there's different levels of spiritual masters. One is the liberated soul, and the other is one who elevates one's consciousness by means of relevant instructions. And of course, the spiritual master can be both, but not everyone is liberated who acts as a spiritual master. They may be sadhaka also, but they know more than you do. They know more than we do by the grace of the Super Soul and Krishna. So, therefore, it's a matrix. It's a loving network that Krishna has thrown a net out into the material world with these personalities who have agreed. Because, we may think it's a big deal to be a spiritual master. In one sense it is, but whenever Srila Prabhupada spoke about it, he didn't make a big deal out of it. He just said, just repeat what Krishna says, and then you'll be a spiritual master. Simple. Just repeat what Krishna says. Don't make anything up. Don't pretend you know something you don't know, but repeat what you've heard from Krishna in the Shastras and from the spiritual masters who have passed it down to us, like a mango from the top of a tree, the one right at the top where it's closest to the sun, the juiciest, biggest, ripest, wonderful mango, and is, passed down from hand to hand. If you just drop it from the top, it splats on the ground and you can't enjoy it. But if it's passed down, one person hand by hand down to the ground, then you can enjoy the full taste of the fruit.
There's something from Vijay Govinda.
So just to tie off one loose end, as Prabhupada, I just heard Prabhupada say the other day in a tape that actually intuition is coming from the Super Soul. But he used a funny example. One of the devotees asked him, Srila Prabhupada, then does that mean that if a person we're distributing a book and the person agrees to take the book, that means that the Super Soul is inspiring him to take the book? And Krishna said yes. And if the person is too much desirous for material pleasure, he'll say to him inside, oh, you don't want that. Let's go to the restaurant. And he goes to the restaurant. So the Super Soul is there guiding everyone at all times. And that's how you can see the Super Soul. The beginning of seeing the Super Soul in the heart of everyone is to watch them carefully and see how they're doing what they desire, that they're being directed to go here and there and to fulfill their desires. That's Krishna directing everything. And once you learn to see that, that's the reality. You don't see, Krishna there, pushing everybody from one place to the other physically. You don't see it. But you understand through the knowledge that that's what's happening. And gradually it becomes more and more, as it said here in one of the purports, as you gradually follow these spiritual masters' instructions and hear the scriptures and become more and more submissive, then the knowledge becomes more precise and more clear, and you'll be able to see more and more clearly how it is that Krishna is acting behind everything. And when you get to that stage, then you become free from fear. You're no longer fearful. Is that okay? Okay.
And next is from Vijay Govinda.
Hey Vijay, Govinda, sorry that I'm tucked away down here in quarantine because I'm too old.
He says, please accept my humble obeisances. Can I ask if the CC is technically a Purana, as it is a history of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes? If not, what kind of Shastra is it? Your servant Vijay Govinda.
It's just as the Bhagavatam is the cream of the Vedas, so the Caitanya-caritämrta is the cream of all the scriptures. It's the cream of all the scriptures. I haven't heard it described in those terms of being Shruti or Smriti. I've heard that the Bhagavatam is considered by Jiva Goswami to be Shruti, eternal. All 18,000 verses are eternally existent. And it appears from time to time in the material world when Vyasadeva comes. But I haven't heard the Caitanya-caritämrta described in those terms as Shruti or Smriti. But one thing is sure, it only has to do with pure devotional service. And you could say it's even more elevated because it reveals the topmost feelings between Radha and Krishna and between the residents of Vrindavan and Krishna through Lord Chaitanya and his eternal associates. So it's the topmost transcendental literature. So I don't think it's very important whether we call it Shruti or call it Smriti. The Smriti is actually the explanation of the Shruti. The Shruti is expressed in mantras and language that human beings can't understand. They're actually meant, the mantras are meant for the demigods to understand. They're meant to please the higher personalities. The vast majority of the Vedic hymns are meant for performing sacrifice for the satisfaction of Vishnu and Vishnu's representatives, the demigods. So the Shrutis are, in a general sense, explaining the Smritis are, in a general sense, explaining the Shrutis. But I've never heard it described as a Smriti. But it does explain all the verses of the Shastras. That's its greatness. I mean, you don't see, the Bhagavatam in the verses, quoting Padma Purana and other Puranas. The Bhagavatam is the Bhagavatam. It's eternal. It's a scripture. But Caitanya-caritämrta quotes from all of them. And not only that, as I said before, it weaves them together in a way to make it more clear how they're all connected together, how they're all one body of scripture. So I mean, I've never heard it said in terms of whether it's Shruti or Smriti, but I can say, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, and what we say every day now, before we recite the Caitanya-caritämrta, that it is the essence of all the Vedas. And if we could only have one, we would take this one. What else? I hope that's as much as I can say.
Vijay says, thank you. It's certainly nectar. I just finished it recently.
Oh.
This is from Marcela Ramirez.
Oh, Marcella. Hare Krishna, Marcella.
She says, Hare Krishna, how do you forgive someone who has deeply betrayed you and defamed your character without knowing you? Or someone who has made up things about your false ego that aren't true? How can one let go of hurt through understanding false ego and its connection to personality?
We have to see the material world is a place of suffering. Dukhalayam ashasvatam. And therefore, everything that happens to us in this material world is actually the mercy of God. Because the things like we heard just before the Chatra Shloki Bhagavatam, we have to understand the impediments and the explanation of the absolute truth. Therefore, the impediments have to be learned for all of us who are in the material world. Humility. We have to accept the mercy of Krishna in all of its forms with humility, knowing that Krishna is controlling everything in this material world, and He's there in our hearts. And also we should see, whether the person that we think betrayed us, whether or not other people are thinking he's betrayed. If in general you think you're betrayed by someone who is in practically exclusively not felt like that towards that person, then you have to let it go. The word is forgiveness. The most powerful energies are forgiveness, humility. These are the Brahmatejas, the potencies of the Brahminical nature, the mode of goodness. We have to forgive those who, in the Bible it says, forgive us of those who trespass. Forgive us our trespasses and those who trespass us against us. So that's a prayer to the Lord. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So if you think that you've been betrayed and you feel bad, then don't betray anyone else. And in that way, perhaps someone is being directed by Krishna to teach you how to behave. And that forgiveness will repair the relationship, and it will also elevate you in spiritual consciousness.
This is from Rati Manjari.
Yes.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. This weekend there was an online Vaishnavi retreat where we heard from senior Vaishnavis. It was in general very nice to attend and to learn from the senior devotees. I have one question about something I heard. One speaker was emphasizing the importance of our relationship with Krishna. She said that when we do our sadhana, and especially our japa, we should be actively praying to Krishna to reveal to us what our particular relationship with him is. Is this the proper understanding? Could you please comment on this?
Well, There's nothing wrong with praying to Krishna to accept us. And as we advance in devotional service, eventually it's not wrong to pray to reveal our relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world. But I wouldn't say that it's right for everybody to pray like that. I think that that requires guidance from the spiritual master, actually, and Shastra. I don't think it's not like an absolute statement. You know, the Goswamis are praying, "Where are you, Krishna? Where are you? Where are you?" They're never saying, "Oh, Krishna, here you are, and I'm in this relationship, and therefore." So this feeling of separation from Krishna, if it's expressed properly, if you're expressing your feeling of separation from Krishna properly, then it can be very beneficial to think like that. But if you're not qualified, or if you're not, if in other words, if your desire of the prayer is for you, then it's not proper yet. In other words, devotional service is not for our pleasure, it's for Krishna's pleasure. So if you're making that prayer, if you're not elevated enough to make that prayer for Krishna's pleasure, but you're making that prayer for my satisfaction so that I will know who I am, it's not complete. If the prayer is, "Please let me know who I am in the spiritual world so that I can serve you and please you, so that I can make you happy as possible," then that is proper. But if we can't say the complete prayer, if we just say, "Oh Krishna, please let me know who I am," I think it sounds self-centered to me. It sounds self-centered. Rather, the prayer should be, "Please accept me, don't kick me away." But then, like I said, if a person becomes actually elevated enough in devotional service, but I'm a little bit shy to say that this is a proper prayer for everyone, because if an advanced devotee says this to a neophyte devotee, and they start saying that prayer in a way that makes them more selfish, then it wouldn't be the right thing for that particular devotee. But that requires deep spiritual guidance. When Sanatana Goswami approached Lord Chaitanya, now let's try to understand what's happening. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the mood of Radharani, and Sanatana Goswami is a manjari, an assistant, an eternal assistant of Radharani. So he's coming to Lord Chaitanya and he's saying, "Who am I?" So what did he say? You're an eternal servant of Krishna. So the tendency to want to know exactly who I am, what my name is, what my identity is, what color clothes I wear, and all these details that are there, the higher rasa shastras, they should not be approached by just anyone. We have to be qualified. Therefore, follow in the footsteps of Sanatana Goswami and ask who I am and accept that I'm an eternal servant of Krishna first. So because whoever you are in the spiritual world, you're an eternal servant of Krishna. Whether you're a gopi or a cowherd boy or a parental figure or servant or whatever, you're a servant of Krishna. Everyone is a servant of Krishna. So unless we know that first and have realized it, then to try to ask who we are, it may be a little bit of a stretch. It's like when you're with a very big person, you don't just ask them anything about their personal lives. You have to be qualified by relationship. That's all I can say about that, actually.
He says, thank you. Very meaningful answer.
And since it is 20 minutes to 9, I think I have to stop now. Is there somebody else? Is there something else? Is there more?
Marcella also says thank you. And Rati just sent something. She says, this same speaker also said that we are Rupa Nugas and therefore followers of Rupa Manjari. She also said that many of our gurus are Manjaris, and this indicates a lot about our spiritual identities.
Doesn't mean anything about our spiritual identities. Lord Chaitanya had followers who were devotees of Lord Ramachandra. Doesn't mean that just because we are our spiritual masters are Manjaris, that we are necessarily a Manjari. Radharani gave an instruction to Gopal Kumar to give her mercy to her devotee. He was a Brahmin from Mathura, and he went to Pragjotashipur, and the deity of Durga named Kamyaka Devi gave him an instruction to go to Vrindavan and find his spiritual master there, which was Gopal Kumar. And Gopal Kumar, she came to Gopal Kumar, Radharani, and told Gopal Kumar, I'm sending my devotee to you. Please give him your mercy. And guess who he ended up being in the spiritual world? A cowherd boy. Sarup. So I think this is premature. I think this preaching is premature. Did Prabhupada ever say that? Did you ever hear Srila Prabhupada say that in any of his books, in any of his lectures, in any of his questions and answer sessions? Did he ever say that? You can't think yourself into a particular relationship with Krishna. You can't decide that you're going to be in a particular relationship with Krishna. Your relationship with Krishna is eternal. It has to be revealed to you. It's not a fact that just because we're Rupanugas, therefore every one of us is a Manjari. It's not true. The younger brother of Rupa and Sanatan was Anupam, and he was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. And naturally, Rupa and Sanatan, because they were elder to him and they were pure devotees of Lord Krishna, they encouraged their younger brother to come with them and worship Krishna with them. And they were very dear to him and they were very powerful. So he said, yes, of course. That night, he couldn't sleep. He cried himself to sleep. Couldn't sleep. He cried all night. And he came to them the next day and he said, I'm sorry, I can't give up the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra. Later on, when he died, and Rupa went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri, he informed the Lord of the death of Anupam, because he left his body while they were traveling to see him. And he told him that he was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. And Lord Chaitanya glorified him like anything and said, yes, I also tested Murari Gupta in the same way. And Murari Gupta passed the test because he was an eternal servant of Lord Ramachandra. And he glorified him. So just because you're in Lord Chaitanya's movement, it doesn't mean that you're automatically a Manjari. That's a it's not in our line. That thought is not in our line. You'll never hear Prabhupada say that. If you can find me a place where he says it, please bring it to me and I'll change my mind. Hare Krishna. And we'll stop there. This is the nectar of Caitanya-caritämrta. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Sri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Advaita Charya ki jai. Gadadhar Pandit ki jai. Srivas Thakur ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. See you tomorrow night at the same place, same station, here, right here. It's tomorrow. It's Apara Akadashi, 7 o'clock tomorrow night, UK time. See ya. Haribol.